Hello children, welcome to SV Union High School and Junior College Pune. I am Deepa Fadke. We will be learning about Standard 10th English 3.2 lesson, The Night I Met Einstein. So let's start learning about the writer, the author. Jerome Whitman, 1913-1998. He was a famous American novelist who won the Pulitzer Prize in 1960 for musical drama Feral Love. Whitman has written around 30 novels, various short stories and plays and screenplays, and also a memoir. Children, Pulitzer is a prize. 100 years ago, it used to be given for exceptional achievements in journalism. But nowadays there are more than 21 different categories ranging from literature to musical composition. So it's been given for the people doing extraordinary work into different fields. Then children, you can learn about memoir. Memoir is a work, it's a written work that has been done regarding the biography or some personal experiences. The Night I Met Einstein is a brilliant article where Jerome Whitman penned down his most unusual experience of an encounter with Einstein, published in the November 1955 editor of Reader's Digest. It's a great article which captures the persona of Einstein, who was also an amateur violinist, and helped the writer Jerome Whitman, who was tone deaf, to appreciate music. Let's learn about Einstein. Albert Einstein, 1879-1955. He was a physicist and scientist, and his field of science is physics. He has proposed very famous, world famous theory. He was a German-born theoretical physicist who developed the theory of relativity, one of the two pillars of physics. He is also known for his discovery of photoelectric effect, for which he won the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1921. His work is also known for its influence on the philosophy of science. And the books written by him are The World as I See It, Relativity, the Special and the General Theory, Ideas and Opinions, Out of My Latter Years, and The Evolution of Physics. So children, now we are going to start learning about glossary. There are certain facts about Albert Einstein, that always his left brain worked hard in fields of physics and maths, whereas his right brain assisted in his theories, and he was exposed to music early in his life, and that's the reason he learned to play violin. Concert, performance of music by players or singers. Dine, have dinner. Frontier, the extreme limit of knowledge or understanding in a particular field, extent. Gramophone, a machine for playing recorded music. Hostess, a woman who hosts a social gathering at her home and takes responsibility for the guests while they are there. Nodded, indicated agreement by moving head up and down. Pianist, someone who plays the piano. Philanthropist, a person who actively seeks to promote human welfare, usually by the way of charity. Tone deaf, unable to hear the difference between the high and low notes of music. Children, you need to remember certain names over here. Johann Sebastian Bach was a German music composer of the 17th century. Then Bing Crosby was an American singer and actor. Johann McCormack is a popular opera and ballad singer of the early 20th century. And the trumpeter, a 1904 song which became extensively popular during and after the First World War. So their references have come in this lesson. You need to remember and understand them. Let's start reading the lesson. When I was a very young man, I was invited to dine at the house of a philanthropist. After a wonderful dinner, our hostess took us to a large drawing room. Chairs were being arranged. I am arranging the chairs for a concert, my hostess said. We are going to listen to a very good pianist. Though everyone else was very happy, I wasn't. I did not understand classical music. I thought I was tone deaf. I sat down so that I would not be impolite and waited for the concert to begin. I did not pay attention to the music after it began. So in this article, the writer was invited to dine at the house of a very powerful businessman. Philanthropist is a person who's actually very, very rich and who's always ready and who always helps the poor and needy. So, the writer was invited to dine at his house, a businessman's house, and after the dinner there was a concert and a pianist was invited to perform. Now the writer was disappointed about the concert as he was tone deaf. So he was feeling bored and inattentive, but still he sat over there because he didn't want to be impolite. So he stood over there, then he sat down, he waited for the concert to begin. But he did not pay any attention to the music even if it started. And he had an opportunity to listen to the compositions of Bach, played by a pianist. Still, he did not pay attention to it. After a while, I heard everyone clapping, so I realized that the piece was over. Just then, I heard a gentle but firm voice saying, "You are fond of Bach." I knew as much about Bach as I did about nuclear physics. I was going to say something ordinary so that I could get out of the situation. I turned in order to look at my neighbor and I saw a very famous face. It was someone with a shock of white hair and a pipe. I knew that I must tell this man the truth. He looked at me as if my answer was very important. So here, the writer remembers few years back, actually this article is a story that the writer is narrating about his real life incident. When the narrator, Whitman, met Albert Einstein for the first time. So he recollects that one evening what happened when he was invited by a businessman. Whom did he meet? So it was none other than the famous personality, the very famous face, and it was Albert Einstein. So obviously when the question came from Albert Einstein, the narrator, the writer knew that he must tell the truth to this man. So, and obviously he also noticed, the narrator also noticed that he understood, he realized that his answer for the question that was asked by Albert Einstein was very, very important for him. Let's continue reading. I do not know anything about Bach, I said. I've never heard any of his music. He looked surprised. You have never heard of Bach? He asked. He made it sound as if I had said that I had never taken a bath. I would like to understand music so that I could understand Bach, I said. But I am not able to. I am tone deaf. So when the question was asked by Einstein to the narrator about Bach, very bluntly but honestly, the narrator also replied him, saying that he did not know anything about Bach. That time, even Einstein looked to be surprised. He looked at the narrator as if he had never taken a bath. But at the same time, when the narrator said that he would like to understand music because he is tone deaf, he would like to understand even about Bach, but because he is tone deaf towards music, he is unable to understand it. Let's read next paragraph. The old man got up. You will come up with me? He asked. I just remained seated. I am requesting you to come with me, he said again. So I went up with him. He took me to a room which had a gramophone in it and asked, What kind of music do you like? Well, I answered, I like songs that have words and the kinds of music where I can follow the tune. He smiled and nodded, obviously pleased. You can give me an example perhaps? I told him I like anything by Bing Crosby. At once I could hear Bing Crosby's voice filling the room. Now, can you please tell me what you just heard? He said. The simplest answer seemed to be to sing the lines, so I sang it back to him. He smiled. You are not tone deaf, he said. I told him this was one of my favorite songs and something I had heard hundreds of times, so it didn't really prove anything. Nonsense, said Einstein. It proves everything. Do you remember your first arithmetic lesson in school? Suppose, at your very first contact with numbers, your teacher had ordered you to work out a problem in and say long division or fractions. Could you have done it? So here, children, we need to learn about Einstein, that when he asked the narrator, the writer, whether he is able to understand it, he also asked about bash. But when the narrator answered him that he doesn't have any idea about it, then the old man, such a famous personality, such a famous scientist and face, but he did not mind teaching such a small, or you can say young boy. At that point of time, the writer was also very young. So the famous personality like Albert Einstein did not mind to teach few lessons of music to this boy. Knowing that the writer, the narrator doesn't know about music, just Einstein took it upon himself to educate the author, to educate the narrator about music. So he took him to a room with a gramophone and patiently exposed him to different levels of music in a methodological manner. He compared learning music to learning arithmetic and so beautifully explained that was it possible for the author to learn the lessons of, to do the problems of arithmetic simply after it was explained by his teacher? Obviously, the narrator could say no to it. So beautifully, the author had learnt in school to show how a gradual study of a subject was necessary to understand its complex concepts. So anything that you learn, children, first of all you learn about simple things, and then from simplicity to difficult things you start learning. So this has been very nicely told and explained by Einstein to the author. So children, we have learned the lesson, The Night I Met Einstein, up to the second last paragraph of page 109. We will learn remaining lesson in the next video session. So till then, thank you, take care.